As the beam of electric light sliced through the darkness over the calm Atlantic waters, the Titanic quietly made its way through the waves, its passengers asleep. Suddenly, a monstrous white shape was caught in the light, the fateful iceberg that would rend the side of the legendary ship. On April 14, 1912, just 2 days before the disaster, someone captured a photo of a giant iceberg with a unique elliptical shape. Researchers later discovered that this iceberg likely formed from snow that fell 100,000 years ago. Using computer modeling and data from 1912, along with new information about winds and ocean currents, they concluded that the iceberg probably originated from a small cluster of glaciers in southwest Greenland. These days, it's possible to calculate the paths of such icebergs for any given year in the past. If the Titanic had passed through that region just 2 days later, the iceberg would have drifted far from the collision point. Initially, the most well-known iceberg in the world weighed 75 million tons. Over time, it began to melt. By the time it sank the Titanic, its weight had reduced to only 1.5 million tons. The iceberg, melting for months, was still a massive 400 feet long, with over 100 feet of its surface above water. Some believe that a rare lunar event, a supermoon, played a role in the sinking. On that night, an unusually high tide, caused by the supermoon, could have pulled the iceberg southward faster than usual. A specific type of bacteria is slowly consuming the Titanic's remains. Salt corrosion, ocean currents, freezing temperatures, and this rust-eating microorganism might eventually consume the entire wreck. American actress Dorothy Gibson, who survived the Titanic, began filming a movie called Saved from the Titanic almost immediately after arriving in New York. She wore the same clothes from the disaster in the movie, which was released just a month after the sinking. The film was a success, but the only known copy was destroyed in a fire. 14 years before the Titanic sank, a novella titled Futility eerily predicted the disaster. The story featured a fictional ship called the Titan, which sank after hitting an iceberg in April. Both ships were described as unsinkable, and both had insufficient lifeboats. There were real-life love stories on the Titanic as well. 13 couples were on board for their honeymoon. One couple, who owned Macy's department store in New York, faced a tragic end. When the sinking became apparent, the wife refused to leave her husband, who insisted that women and children go first. She gave her coat to her maid and stayed with her husband until the end. Some believe the Titanic sinking was caused by a mummy, not an iceberg. The legend dates back to around 1000 BCE, involving a mysterious Egyptian priestess. Her mummy, later discovered by a group of English travelers, supposedly brought bad luck to anyone who possessed it. The mummy's casket allegedly ended up on the Titanic. A robot submarine found the Titanic's wreck nearly 13,000 feet under the Atlantic Ocean, split into 2 halves. The exact reason for the break is unknown. Some think water pressure from the collision caused it, while others believe the hull's high slag content made it brittle. The Titanic's design flaws contributed to its sinking. Watertight bulkheads were not completely sealed, allowing water to flow between compartments. The iron rivets and steel hull had high sulfur content, making them fragile in cold temperatures. The ship's crew lacked binoculars, which might have helped spot the iceberg sooner. The binoculars were locked away, and the key was with a crew member who was transferred off the ship before its voyage. A warning from the SS Californian about dense ice fields never reached the Titanic's captain, as the radio operator didn't deem it urgent. Atmospheric conditions that night may have caused an optical illusion, making the iceberg nearly invisible until it was too late. Only 37 seconds passed between the sighting and the collision, and the Titanic took 2 hours and 40 minutes to sink. That's it for today. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share it with your friends. For more interesting content, stay curious.